I was out making a delivery late one night. It was probably the longest drive I'd ever gone for a pizza delivery from the pizza business where I worked. It was about a 20-minute trip from where I reside. Plus, they bought 4 huge pies. So I assumed it was a party and I'd receive a much larger tip. However, navigating the gravel roads at night was always annoying. I drove up to the supplied address, which was an old, sketchy-looking building in the middle of a wooded clearing. There were no cars parked or lights turned on. I put the car in park and called my boss. I asked him to reread the address at least 3 times to ensure that I had typed it correctly, but that checked out. I could sense he was in a terrible mood, so he directed me to knock on the door and check it out. He would generally be upset if we took back 1 pie, but I was worried about what he would do if I returned 4. I was terrified, but I forced my way out and approached the building's front entrance. There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard. I heard nothing and did not expect to hear anything. I was quite upset, not because no one answered the door, but because I realized it was all a waste of time and gas. I banged once more in despair, and then I heard some rustling noises from within the building. I knocked again and said I was the pizza guy. There was silence now. I felt slightly more uneasy than before, but before I could turn around, I observed something at the window. Someone was gazing through the window. I couldn't determine if it was a guy or a woman. All I saw was their eyes. Their eyes were wider than I thought possible, peering closely at me. I was disturbed enough by this to drop the pizzas and dash back to my car. The gadget wouldn't start until I turned the key 3 times. I drove off the grass and back into the gravel road, but I could feel the car rocking, trembling, and bumping. Something was not right. I hadn't gotten very far from the building when I heard a harsh scraping sound from outside. There was so much resistance that I couldn't drive. The car came to a stop. I got out of the car to see what the hell was wrong. A shiver shot up my spine as I began to feel my heart skip beats. My tires had been slashed and had come totally off the rim. Not just the front, but all 4 tires were slashed. When I knocked on that building's door, I realized someone had done this. Instead of running, I returned to the car and closed the doors. I was so close to the skyscraper that I could almost see it from where I was if the trees hadn't obscured the view. I called 911 and explained everything to the operator. She assured me that the cops would arrive as soon as possible and that I needed to remain hidden. I asked her if it was better to stay in the car or run, and she advised me to stay in the car with the door locked. She asked that I stay on the phone with her until the cops arrived. My entire body was trembling in all directions. There was nothing except a dark, seemingly infinite jungle. I knew it'd take forever for the cops to arrive. I wasn't comfortable sitting in that car so close to whoever did this. The next portion, however, completely devastated me. It still rattles me to this day, and I hope no one ever has to go through this type of dread. As I was checking all of the windows to make sure no one was outside, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the same individual I had seen at that window, eyes wider than ever. I could see a woman now, and I could see a little smile spreading across her face. I opened my door and rushed towards the woods, unconcerned about how much noise I made. I ran till I was out of breath, which wasn't long, and then hid behind a massive log on the ground. I tried to mask my heavy breathing with my palm while I waited for what seemed like hours before hearing sirens in the distance. I gathered all of my remaining endurance and ran back in the direction of the dirt road. When I saw the bright red and blue lights, I felt better than I had ever felt before. They were parked in front of my car, searching with flashlights. I stormed out yelling at them like a lunatic to help me. I dropped to the floor and began to gag, nearly throwing up from the amount of running I had done. They hauled me up and began questioning me, and I described everything to the best of my ability. One of the two cars pulled up to the building, and the two officers began searching it. They returned with nothing but a few sharp items. These objects were exactly the same as those used to slash my tires. The cops assumed it was a sick, deranged pair because I saw the woman, but they were never discovered, which still bothers me to this day. I obviously quit my job immediately after that and began working at a local grocery store. I will never forget seeing the woman in the rear of my car. I began at the age of 16 in my hometown in the outskirts of a large metropolis. At first, they assigned me to assist the chef in the kitchen and clean the premises. 2 months later, my supervisor asked me to deliver on the main delivery boy's days off, and I replied yes, of course. Then, abruptly, the delivery boy quit. When he returned from delivering a pizza to this particular residence, he appeared traumatized and scared, as if something had happened to his face or eyes. He walked into my boss's office and argued for about 15 minutes. Then he came out, said, "Good luck, kid," and informed me that he had quit. When I inquired why, he answered, "Just a lousy job, that's all." He then clapped me on the back and departed. I knew it was more than just a bad job, but I didn't think much about it. It was the last time I saw him. So, for the next few weeks, I was the delivery boy until they found someone who could deliver pizzas. About 2 weeks into my pizza delivery job, my supervisor gave me the address of a residence, and as usual, I entered it into the GPS and drove over, enjoying the sunset as I went. I was hoping it wouldn't take more than 2 minutes so I could get home. Unfortunately, it was on the rural side of town, where the residences are about a quarter-mile apart. I stopped in front of the 2-story house and glanced at it. When I looked at it, I got the creepiest feelings. Uncut yard, weeds, dead trees, and an ancient porch with no cream chairs, flower pots, or tables. It appeared abandoned, but I went out anyhow and knocked on the door. I hoped my boss had given me the wrong address or something so I could get out of there. The door lock began to wobble, and the door opened. It was an elderly lady, at least 70 years old or so, with white hair, missing teeth, and emaciated, very short, but her eyes were gazing at me. It terrified me out. I believed if I was pleasant, everything would be fine after all. "Pepperoni pizza, ma'am," I replied as politely as I could. "Yes," she said in a scratchy voice as if she had a sore throat. "Alrighty, here you go," I said, handing her the pizza, but she just stared at it with little emotion and took her handbag instead. "Did you come with someone else?" I froze, then looked up at her, still glaring at me. That question genuinely scared me. No," I replied. "Where is the other one? He went off on me last time he visited." "Ran off?" I thought it didn't make sense. "He quit some weeks ago," I said. Then she grabbed her purse and began looking for money. Or so I thought for nearly a minute, the longest minute ever, before she stopped and stared at me, hands in her purse. She did not appear surprised or confused, but rather as if she was pondering deeply about something. I could tell she had something in her right hand inside the purse, but I couldn't see what it was. I began to freak out at this point. What if it were pepper spray, a knife, or a gun? I mean, What took her so long to dig $10 out of her purse? Then, behind her, I noticed a shadow, a silhouette of a man approaching the door, and all of a sudden, I heard footsteps crushing the leaves on my left side near to the porch, as well as a deep voice shouting, "Hey!" I turned over and saw the head of a middle-aged man with an angry expression peeping over the porch. This guy started climbing the porch, and I realized I'd had enough. I dashed to my car, threw the pizza inside, started it, and drove away. I did not look back as I drove away in the dark. I had to lie and pay for the pizza from my own wallet, but it was worthwhile. On the day I quit, I decided to tell my supervisor what happened that evening, which frightened him out and made him wonder why I hadn't told him sooner. He claimed James informed him he just walked out of there and didn't pay attention to her. My supervisor then phoned the cops to investigate the suspicious scenario and told me I may leave. About 2 days later, he called again, stating the officers had the house classified as foreclosed for almost a year and discovered 3 individuals living there when they broke in. 2 guys and the elderly lady I encountered. They were arrested, and he told me nothing else. I am still traumatized, and I'm not sure what would have occurred if I had waited. They could have easily jumped me, but, thank God, I quit and am still alive.